Okay, well, maybe we'll get going here. People will kind of come in and out as we go. Welcome everybody to our final session, 6-week session of this lacrosse playbook. We really appreciate everybody's support. Want to thank Epic Lacrosse for coming on as a sponsor last minute. So Mr. Ward will send you some Epic Lacrosse swag at some point here in the near future. We'll have to get your address and your size. It's really a pleasure for me to end on this. Dillon Ward is joining us tonight. You're in Denver, Dillon? Wardo?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. From Denver. Dillon's resume is quite unbelievable, and I had the pleasure of working with him and coaching with him and warming him up when he was just a grade 11 student at the Hill Academy a long time ago. You know, he's come through the Orangeville goalie group, which has been, had some legends come through there, and he being one. Currently playing in the NLL for the Colorado Mammoth and in the Premier Lacrosse League with the Chaos. But, for me, the most important thing I've seen from him is his commitment to the Canadian box and field game, and leading us to some real, crazy championship opportunities in those games. I've never, watched a goalie that was such a gamer as Dillon, where he can elevate his level and with a quiet presence on the field, take total control just by his explosive, ball saving ability. So it's a real pleasure to have you, Dillon. I'm going to turn over the floor to you, and welcome to the Lacrosse Playbook.
I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for having me. Russ, one thing I can promise you is I will not have star drill into a shot for our field goalies. I remember you made us do that one time, and that was probably one of my least favorite things we did at the Hill when you were running practices. But pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, and thanks for that great intro.
And just Dillon, I'll just cut in. I forgot to tell people, if they do have questions, post it in the Q&A, and then at the end we'll kind of go through question one by one. All right.
Perfect. Thanks, Russ. All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I've got a little PowerPoint presentation. Like Russ said, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I'll try and answer them as we go through, and try to make this as much of an interactive presentation as possible. All right, so first we're going to talk about box lacrosse goalies. Well, for this presentation, we'll talk about box lacrosse goalies. And I've got it broken down into 6 different portions. We've got the equipment, stance, warm-up, in practice, in game, and what you can do on your own. So it'll kind of be both for, things to give to your goalie and things you can do as a coach to help coach your goalies. So first things first, we'll start off with the equipment. Helmet, throat guard, mouth guard, chest protector, gloves, pants, cup, leg pads, and shoes. For me, I prefer to use a hockey goalie helmet. I used the field goalie helmet for years in minor, junior, and even my first year in the NLL. I made the switch just because I felt that the hockey goalie helmet is designed to take shots and take those blows and deflect the ball and all the power coming through it, so it doesn't rattle your head as much. And my main reason for that was obviously in box lacrosse, unlike field lacrosse, you don't have your stick to really catch the ball before it hits your head. So I thought the best form of protection was to switch over to the hockey goalie helmet. Obviously, you need a throat guard and a mouth guard. The chest protectors, obviously a very important piece of your equipment. Different brands out there. My personal favorite is Bodum. It's what we use in the NLL, and I just feel like out there on the market, that's the best protection that you're going to get. Gloves. This is a tough one because, especially down in the States, but I'll see a lot of the younger kids and kids who are first trying the sport out use player gloves, and I can't stress enough how much I discourage people to do this. Just the difference in a field glove or a player glove and the goalie glove is just so much. There's just so much more protection in the goalie gloves. compared to the player gloves. You know, I see it all the time down here. Kids will wear them. They won't have the proper gloves. They'll take a couple stingers in the hand, and then they're done. They're never going to want to play box goalie again. So I can't emphasize enough having your goalies wearing proper gloves. You know, for me, I, again, personally love the Warrior Fat Boy gloves, the new ones they just came out. Those are the ones that I use. But a lot of the goalies in the NLL also use the Gate or Under Armour gloves. I believe it's moved over to Gate now, but yeah, they're a great pair of gloves as well. And if you're in a jam and you can't get your hands on the specific box goalie gloves, I recommend just trying to find an oversized pair of hockey player gloves. Again, it's not as protective, but it's more protective than the field player gloves. Pants, again, I'm a big fan of the Bodum, but you can get away using hockey pants, hockey goalie pants, hockey player pants up to a certain age. But once they start getting into those older ages and kids are getting into high school and growing into their bodies and shooting a lot harder, you're going to want to transition over to the lacrosse specific goalie pants. For a cup, I use a hockey goalie cup. Again, just the most protection you can get. Leg pads, you know, there's, again, a lot of different brands. McKenny and Bodum are probably the two most well known, and I personally use the Bodum there as well. And then shoes, it just depends on what kind of surface you're playing on. For myself, I love using the turf shoes. Obviously, we're playing on the field turf, but you can get away with basketball shoes and just whatever you're really comfortable with. For stance, you're in your athletic stance, so it's the same as really any other sport that you play. Feet are around shoulder width apart. You have a slight bend in your knees. Your chest is slightly forward over top of your knees, not so far over that you're at a risk to fall over, but you want to be a little bit a little forward on your feet. Your balance is on the balls of your feet. Your hand, your stick hand, you can place it wherever you want on the shaft. You know, especially if the kids are using the Tupperware or the field stick style stick. More times than not, kids are going to want to have their grip a little bit higher than right on the plastic. And then I would recommend taping your grip or where you're going to hold your stick, just to make it a little bit easier to hold. If you're using the walls are pretty big, or a wooden stick, they're usually pretty high up. So I recommend, if you're using sticks like that, the goalies would hold the right on the plastic. Your stick should be a little bit in front of your feet when it's between your legs. The reasoning for that is if you make a save with your stick and your stick spins, the ball has a better chance to hit your feet or hit your legs. And make contact with your body to make a save. Whereas if your stick is too far in between your legs and the ball hits your stick and it spins, there's nothing really for the ball to stop. It's not going to hit anything. It's probably going to end up in the back of the net. So I like to have my goalies keep their stick like an inch or two above their shoes or your feet. And then your off stick hand, you want to have the top of your glove facing out. And then you want it around hip level. And the obvious reason for that is all your equipment is on the top of your glove, all the padding. If your hand is twisting, or say you have a hockey goalie and they're holding it kind of like they're playing a hockey goalie with their hand out, if they get hit with the ball, it's really going to hurt them and probably might discourage them from wanting to be a goalie anymore. But yeah, that's that for stance. Sorry, moving on. For a warm-up, for box goalies, I like to get a lot of shots to kind of get warmed up. There's a lot of different things that you can do to do a warm-up, but for me, these are the drills that I really love to see when we start practicing. When I'm practicing with the Colorado Mammoth, these are a lot of the drills that we'll do in our warm-up for practice and in our warm-up for games. Obviously, the star drill with a shot, that's a great warm-up drill for not only the goalies, but the players. But a simple drill, you're set up in a star, and then when the person at the top gets the ball after the 4 other passes, he runs down and takes a quick shot on the goalie. I like to tell my kids to hit the goalies in the pads for this one, make them move a little bit, but let the goalies feel the ball, just so that they can get warmed up and they get used to moving side to side, or warmed up moving side to side, but they're not necessarily getting corners stung on them, or having guys take full shots on them. It's more or less just let them hit them in the shoulders, hit them in the belly pad, rattle a couple off the leg pads, maybe a couple in the stick, just getting the goalies moving a little bit and just feeling that ball. Another one that I'm a big fan of is four corner shooting. And the reason for that is there's just so many different variations that you can do for this drill. You know, you can just have straight up one person shooting from each line at a time. You can do it off of a cross pass where you're throwing either diagonals or up and down and shoot off a pass. You can do what's called two patties, where you're in your four corners and either the low guy will go set a pick on the high guy, or the high guy will go set a pick on the low guy. They'll roll out and there'll be two shots. You'll have one guy coming down right on the top on the doorstep, and then the second guy shooting will be taking an outside shot. And these are just great shots to have your goalies move to different positions in the net, you know, get them used to getting saves or shots from the inside and the outside. And then the two patties, my favorite, because then they have to make a save on the inside and then set up and square up and make a save from the outside. So that's my favorite drill personally. Horseshoe shooting, very simple. You know, guys, everyone has a ball. They're lined up around the outside, and one after another, they're shooting. Again, you can do different variations with this. You know, you can have the straight up horseshoe. You can have an inside line and an outside line. I know Rosie loves this one with the Toronto Rock, and just have the guys shoot a quick stick right on the doorstep first. And then the second line behind him, after the first line goes, will take an outside shot. And that just kind of mixes it up a little bit. And then snake shooting is another very simple drill where you'll have everyone in a line with the ball, lefties on one side, righties on the other, and you can really start them anywhere you want. You can have them coming out of the corner, you can have them coming off the half boards, coming from up top, and just running across the middle at different planes. So if they're coming out of the corner, it'll be coming straight across the crease, quick inside shot, maybe one fake, and throw it in there. You go from the half boards, they're coming straight across for that mid-range shot on the run, and then up top they'll be coming more down and then across for that outside look on the run. So those are four of my favorite drills for warm up. That's essentially what our warm up looks like for the Colorado Mammoth and a lot of other teams in the NLL. It gets the goalies a lot of shots, a high volume amount of shots, but it also is controlled so that you can, you know what you're going to get. You can get the feeling of the ball, what it feels like that day. And then as you progress through these four different drills, the guys can start shooting more and more like a game, so that you have to work harder as these drills go on. In practice, so with a box goalie, more padding equals more shots. You can keep them in there for basically anything. If you're just doing shooting drills, 5-on-5, 1v1, 2v2, anything like that. Like, you can really keep your goalie in there for anything. With all that padding, it's not going to hurt. You're not going to overwork them. They're going to see a ton of shots in games anyways. So, you don't really have to worry about overdoing it with goalies in practices. Some of my favorite drills are flow drills, and, much like hockey, those are just up and down the floor in different scenarios, whether it's 1v1 or 2v1 flow drills, 3v2. And the other thing with these flow drills is they're generally going the whole floor, so they need to use both nets, and the goalie's more involved rather than just making a save. Usually they'll have to have a ball and make a pass after it to get them a little bit more involved with the drill, and that also just works on outlets. So I'm a big fan of doing flow drills. Players obviously aren't going to be as big of a fan of these just because they're running up and down, but for a goalie standpoint, there's a lot of different points of the drill that they need to be dialed in for, and that's, stopping the ball, tracking the ball, finding the rebound, or if the rebound isn't gettable, having a backup ball somewhere to put it in your stick quickly and get it up and out to keep the drill going. And then a lot of volume shooting drills are great for goalies as well. Obviously, we talked about the warm-up drills there, but inside shooting, outside shooting, shots off of passes, breakaways, just all different sorts of shooting drills that, goalies are going to see these kind of shots in games. So, you can rep it out a ton in practice. And then, like I said, for flow drills, like having goalies throw outlet passes, doing any real drills with outlet passes is great for goalies, especially at a young age. I'm dealing with it a lot down here at stateside, but the one thing that I'm finding goalies are really lacking right now is being able to throw that outlet pass. And you see it, the best of the best goalies in playing box can throw a great outlet, and it can energize a team. It can start fast offense. It can help teams get out of a slump if they're got a couple scored on them quickly. A quick outlet pass to spark transition can be a great way to help a team get out of the funk. So goalies, it should be a point of emphasis almost every practice that the goalie should be throwing some sort of outlet passes, whether it's a quick check down, those long, like half floor passes, or even passes once they get strong enough or big enough to throw them to that back gate where D guys are running to the bench and that O guy gets that 30, 40 feet head start right off the bench to get a breakaway. So all different levels of passing, but they should be included basically in any practice that you do. In games, this is a tough one because goalies are kind of on their own island, and you don't want to do too much with the goalie because you don't want to kind of mess with their head, but you also want to be engaged enough with them where you're helping them out. I know that I'm at my best when I'm playing for coaches that have that good balance of being able to leave me alone and let me figure things out on my own, but also if they're seeing something, they don't have a problem telling me what they're seeing, or if I see something defensively, I can talk to my coaches and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing from their offense. Let's try something like this or this, or I'm not seeing it real great from this spot on the floor right now. Can we press out to these different spots? But it's just kind of trying to find that balance of having what your relationship's going to look like with your goalie. My points of emphasis for this would be that next play mentality. Everyone's going to get scored on. There are rarely shutouts in lacrosse. You just kind of got to get it through the head of your goalies that you can't change what's already happened. If you get scored on, you a couple rattle off your post, or you take one off the knee or something. There's literally nothing you can do about what's already happened. So how do you get your goalie to focus on that next play? And if you let one in, how can he change so something like that he doesn't get scored on the same way the next time, kind of thing. So what kind of strategies? And I like with Pat Coyle, our Colorado Mammoth coach right now, he is always saying find your due north, right? And always try and find your due north and head that direction and stick to the game plan. And whether things are going good or whether things are going bad, try to just stick to that game plan and what works and what's going to make you successful. So that's one thing that I really, really resonate with when Pat's talking to us about that. Patience in goal. After guys get scored on a couple times, sometimes they might change. They might get a little, not lack of a better term, a little jittery. They might start moving around a little bit too much or start guessing. And, if they get scored on low a couple times, they might start dropping to their knees, no matter where the ball's going, and then they get scored on a couple over their shoulder, or someone has scored the same type of goal on them a few times. Like, let's say someone's coming across the crease and has had the same like dip and dunk goal or reach far side, tuck it short side. Goalies might start playing to that, and then all of a sudden the shooter might change it up and score a really easy goal on them. So just emphasizing that patience and wait for the ball and read and react what you're getting from the ball, and don't just guess because something has already happened. Again, that goes back to that find your due north and sticking to your game plan and what's working for you. A big one too is hold your ground. The one knock on box goalies right now, and I could go on about this for a long time, but is goalies just standing there and plugging the net. But there's definitely some truth in what's being said there, right? Box goalie equipment is built to make you look like more of a wall. So you don't need to be as reactive or move all over the place. You want to hold your ground, cut down your angle, use your equipment to your advantage. And one thing that I love to tell my young goalies is not have any wasted motions, because as you get older and kids start shooting harder or being more accurate And as you jump up levels and the nets get bigger and your equipment gets smaller, if you're moving all over the place and not finding your set position, it's going to be really hard to be a successful goalie, especially in this day and age when players are just so accurate and the technology has gotten so good for guys. Their sticks are incredible, and the targets and the spots that they can put the ball is really next to none. So, you know, obviously you want your goalie to be able to move. You don't want him to just stand there and be a cog in the net. But at the same time, you don't want them moving so much that they're giving up more goal than they're actually taking away from offensive players. So use the equipment to your advantage. You know, build yourself up as a wall, and then as you need to move, react to those shots and block those shots from going in the goal. And then my probably most important thing I like to talk about is value the ball. Like I said, you want to have a goalie that can throw great outlets and can spark transition and get the ball up to the offensive players. But at the same time, you don't want to have a goalie that's just launching balls to launch balls. So, you know, I like to talk to my goalies, especially ones that are capable of throwing. If it's there, 100% pass, let's get it up there. But if it's anything less than an 80-20, I just want them to check it down, make the easy pass, and get the ball up to the offense and let the offensive players do what they do best. You know, it's a little bit of a give and take too, because, you know, box has that 30-second shot clock. So in theory, you should be getting the ball back in 30 seconds anyways. But in the big picture, you know, every possession really does matter. And if you're throwing the ball away 10 times a game and the other team's getting 10 more possessions off of that, you know, that's just not a way to be successful, especially as a team, and then more or less as a goalie as well. That's just going to bring up your goals against. And then lastly, like on your own time, especially now with what we're going on with COVID, you know, this is huge to be able to do on your own to kind of progress, to continue to progress without being able to be on the floor or having, you know, real practices or games. I'm a huge film junkie. I'll watch just about any lacrosse game I can. Right now, obviously with college ball going on, I'm watching a ton of college lacrosse. But when I'm playing in the NLL and when I'm in season, I love watching my own film. I love watching film on other goalies to see what they're doing that are making them successful. Maybe I find something that like maybe a Mike Poulin's doing that I like, or a Christian Del Bianco that's making them successful. Maybe I can take something from their game and add it into my game. That's the kind of film that I'm watching. And then also, you know, I'll watch offensive players, and especially in season, I'll watch offensive players and on the teams that I'm going to play against, and not so much what they do and how they're going to, like, I'm not going to watch film on Saskatchewan and be like, okay, Mark Matthews is going to come in, throw 3 fakes and drop it below my hand, right? I'm watching how the Saskatchewan offense runs on shift after shift. Like, what is there a theme? What's their offensive motion look like? What starts their offense? What gets it going? Where are most of their shots coming from? So that I'm best prepared to know where they're going to shoot from, not necessarily where they're shooting in the goal. So that's the kind of offense, or the film that I like to watch. And the best part is YouTube has so much film on it now. It's so easy to find, you know, games from junior to youth to the professional game level. You know, there's just so much film out there that you can watch. And like I said, I love to watch other goalies, see what makes them successful. I'll watch goalies that, you know, I think I play a similar style as, watch them, what works for them, what can I take from their game and add it into my game to make me a better goalie. So that's a great resource to use, and a great way to help yourself try and get better when you're not necessarily going to be on the floor as much as you'd like to be. You know, you can do hand-eye drills. I just put in juggling because I love to juggle. I think this helped me a ton, especially in high school. And Russ was actually the guy who got me onto it. So I got to give him some thanks there. But you know, juggling is a great way to work on your hand-eye. There's all the other drills that you can do. Like I've seen people use a deck of cards and throwing cards at someone and then try to catch it. But again, you can look up on the internet. There's a ton of different hand-eye drills that you can do to make your hand-eye that much better. Footwork drills, I really enjoy using the speed ladder and just work on different variations of that. to just get my foot speed up and make sure my feet aren't heavy or I'm not just planted in the ground when I'm playing. And then also another one that I love to do is finding 4 or 2 lines that basically make a cross shape. I'll start in one group. Actually, this is more of a field drill, so I'll leave this one until we get into the field presentation. But again, there's a lot of footwork drills that you can do. Forward, backward, kind of sprint to back pedal stuff. Shuffling is a big one. Getting from putting 2 cones out 10 yards or 7 yards apart, and just shuffling back and forth, working on that lateral movement. And then speed ladder is a big one for me. Wall ball, you see it everywhere. Going out there, using a player stick, using a goalie stick, working on your hands. You can never have too good of hands, even as a goalie. Like, you just need to make sure that you're always working on your stick skills. And then lastly, and my personal favorite, is just play. I obviously played a ton of lacrosse growing up and played on a lot of different teams. But I think one of the biggest things and the biggest pieces to my success personally was just like being out there with my buddies, throwing the ball around, shooting on a goal, playing like mini games with guys, playing mini sticks and stuff like that. And just, going out there and not being in such a structured setting and just, having fun, throwing the ball around, trying different stuff you wouldn't think to try on the floor, but stuff you can try out while you're just goofing around with your buddies. And then, if something works, you're like, oh man, maybe I do bring this into the game. And, that's just kind of stuff that I think has been a huge benefit for myself. And I know a lot of other guys have said that as well. So that wraps up my presentation. I'll turn off the sharing right now. And then if anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and I'll answer them as best as I can.
I got a couple sent to me here, Ward. I'll go through with you. Great presentation. How do you pick your goalies? You always get this misconception that your biggest, laziest kid should be your goalie, right? For a lot of developing or new coaches. What are some things to look for in a goalie, or how would you go about it, novice type, when people are picking these?
So when you're looking at kids that young, the first thing I'm going to look at a goalie is, are they scared of the ball? And if they're not scared of the ball, you already have something that you can work with. Like, being able to get rid of that fear of having the ball just chucked at you over and over and over and over again is a huge benefit, especially at a young kid who's in novice or type. Like, that's a big thing. A couple other things that I look at is just, what do they look like in the goal? Do they look like a goalie? Do they move like a goalie? Again, at that young of an age, it's tough because usually those kids haven't really had box experience. But if I can see a kid who kind of naturally looks like a goalie, I know that there's just that framework that you can kind of work around or work with to develop these goalies and build them up.
Perfect. We have one here in the Q&A. David Bigley, could you talk about box goalie arc basics?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of different ways to play the arc and box. The main one is just to stay on your line and fill the goal, essentially. You see that with like a Matt Vince. He basically has this ass in the goal, and he just doesn't. He likes to always have a hand on the post. He likes to know exactly where he is in the net, and that's what works for him. And that's a great way to start. For myself, I play a pretty high arc, and the way that I developed working on my arc was to start low and then work my way farther and farther. So what I mean by that was I started playing, played more like, I actually modeled my game a lot when I was younger around Matt Vance. He was playing for the St. Catherine Athletics at that time, was a goalie I watched a ton. And he was a guy that I kind of modeled my game after a lot when I was really young, him and Brandon Miller. So I started really low. Then as I got older and the shooters started to get a little better, and actually in junior, when they went to the bigger nets, Matt Sawyer, who was my coach in junior, came up to me and was like, all right, let's get you off your line. Let's get you out a little bit bigger. or a little bit farther to cut down the angles. And that really started with me taking one step out and still kind of being able to have my hand on the post or my shaft to tap the post to know exactly where I was. Did that for a couple of years, got pretty comfortable with it. And then again, when I came into the NLL, the net got that much bigger, my gear got that much smaller. I took that next step. So I got even farther out. And it's just more or less just being comfortable in the goal. But I would start with having your goalies always knowing exactly where they are so they can touch and feel their net and know where they are in the net, know how to look at the crease and use that as a guideline of where they are. And then as they get more comfortable, have them come out a little bit farther and a little bit farther until the comfort starts to go away and it kind of hinders them. And then to bring them back a little bit. And that's going to be their kind of safe spot.
Great advice. Great advice. And you're right. I mean, we have so many different sizes and athletic abilities of these goalies, right? There's not really one easy answer to that.
Yeah, for sure. And you even look in the NLL, right? Like myself and Christian Del Bianco, like we can't be expected to play, the exact same style. I'm 6'5", he's, under 6 foot. And he's not going to be able to stand out and cut an angle down as much as I can because guys are going to be able to drop it over his shoulder. So it's just, it's not a one size fits all kind of model.
Yeah. How many shots are too many? You really like a lot of shots. I know that from warming you up and getting burnt shoulders trying to warm you up. But I always get concerned too that goalies in developing areas or wherever just kind of make their practice without really understanding, coaches without really understanding the goalie position. And maybe, you're peppering a novice PB goalie with 130 shots. What would your balance be?
Yeah. So you kind of, like you said, you got to find that balance. For me, I like to build into it. So again, like I know I said in the presentation, you can do as many shots as you want, but that was more for someone who's played and is a goalie. They're not new to the sport. As you got these younger or newer goalies, I like to kind of ease them into it. Do a warm up. Take them out. Let them catch a breather. You do a shooting drill. Have them in there for, until you see them kind of losing their form or, they let they're letting more in than they started. Pull them out, let them catch their breath, take a breather, help them resettle, put them back in, and kind of just like play around with that and see, try to build them up, because you'll find goalies, some will just want to be in there and will never come out. There's other goalies. I've kind of started to get this way now that I'm getting older. I like to get in there, get a feel until I know I'm good, and then I'll hop out and let Tyler Carlson or whoever my backup will be at that point take the brunt of the shots. But you just kind of got to find that balance of what works for your goalie. Yeah,
and I think coaches often make the mistake of thinking they always have to have a goalie in the net to shoot. Yeah, and they don't, right? I mean, you can shoot on an empty net and give your kids a little bit of a direction on how you want. Yeah. How do you? Here was a question. What should coaches say in practice and also in games? And, this is a good one for me. I have a daughter who plays net. She actually met you in Calgary when I saw you on the floor. Yeah. She's a goalie, and, in novice, they were going to overtime and she was jittery. And, what kinds of things should coaches say and what kinds of things should they make sure they don't say in practice and games for kind of a goalie psyche?
So one thing that I've really adapted is what's next. And, it's always what's next. If I let something in that I don't like, what's next? If someone scores on me that I've scouted the way that I've scouted them over and over and over and over again, it's what's next? Like, what's the next play? What's the next play? What's the next play? Like, because again, you can't change what's already happened. What I like to do with my younger goalies is reset and just tell them reset. If a kid is in a drill and he's getting shelled, pull him out for a little bit. Hey, let's reset. Get back to what works. Throw him back in there. See if that helps. In the middle of a game, a goalie makes or lets in a couple week ones in a row. You don't have an option to switch the goalies or anything like that. Yell back at your goalie. Hey, reset. Let's get back to where we are. Reset. Get back to what works for you. I find that helps quite a bit because especially kids at a young age, like it's not fun to get scored on, and it's a hard position to play. And getting scored on over and over and over again is just going to, screw with a kid's psyche. So those kind of buzzwords are ones that I've really found has helped, especially with developing goalies, of what's next or reset. And then on the second part of that, things that, you don't really want to say to goalies. Obviously, like for me, I would always, if I'm in a rut or if I'm having a tough game, I can tell when I'm on the verge of getting pulled. And I'll, looking over at the bench, see what the coaches' reactions are like, see what the backup goalies kind of doing. So try to keep your body language as positive as possible. Always have your goalies back, whether they're playing really well or they're struggling that day. All right, you got the next one, throw those buzzwords at them, but try to be as positive as possible and try to get away from that negativity.
Do you recommend, it's always a difficult thing, especially coaching younger, bantam and under for sure. Goalie is maybe, let in a tough one, but it's something simple that you can see. There's a fine line between saying to him, giving him instruction in that moment, and maybe,
right.
He already feels bad. Like what's the balance there? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I don't know if I would do it in the moment because like for myself, like when I let a bad one in, I already know I let a bad one in. It's like if someone beats me low glove, it's like that, or 5-hole. So let's say it's 5-hole, and I know that I should have stopped it. The last thing I want to hear is someone being like, "Hey, you need to do this." Like I know, I already know what I need to do. What I recommend is wait till after the period, wait for a break, and be like, "Hey, I'm seeing this. What are your thoughts?" And then kind of deal with it on that kind of more of a conversation rather than you need to do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's really good advice. I always get caught on this. How do you involve what's your involvement with goalies in the conditioning? So you do your warm up. We have goalie do a warm up, but then maybe we're doing some running drills. Maybe I always do. Stole it from the hill a little bit with a money ball shot at the end of a drill. If they hit it, there's no run. If they don't, there's a run. Do you make the goalies run too much, not enough? What's your advice there?
I think you need to have goalies running in some aspect. Whether it's like, say you're doing a down and back twice after a drill or something, maybe make your goalie go down and back once or just down, because goalies need to be able to move. They need to be able to go get loose balls from the corner. They need to be able to get to the bench on a delayed penalty or on end of game. You need a 6-on-5. So they need to be able to move and be able to get to where they need to be during the game. At the same time, especially on a hot summer day in Canada, you're not going to want to make them run as much as the players are. Obviously, it's a ton of hot equipment. It's going to be far easier for the players to run than the goalies. But if you can find a way to make them do some of the conditioning so that they're at least moving a little bit or running a little bit, I would definitely do that. But yeah, I'm not going to have them do the exact same run as the players. One thing we did with the Northmen when I was playing junior, we would usually do, especially early in the season, we would do practice for an hour and a half, and then we would do a half hour of conditioning. And what we would do is Rosie and I would get our gear off, throw some shorts on, and then we would come out and join them for the conditioning part at the end of practice.
Good. Yeah, that's great. Maybe last question from me. I'll see if there's any more come in from the group, but on that same token, I've seen different goalie coaches teach when the game's on and the ball's in the other end, what goalies should be doing, right from come way out, almost halfway up the floor, to goalies leaning back on their posts. What's your direction on this, Wardo?
So that's where I like to be as loose as possible. Where, I like to lean back on the crossbar, kind of just sit there in my thoughts and think about, what's going well for me, or, what I need to improve on or fix maybe during the game, but try to keep it as light as possible. Obviously, I'm always going to be dialed into the game, whether there's a delayed penalty or a loose ball comes back my way that I need to get. But I just try to stay as loose as possible, because you need to be on for, realistically, let's just say each team has equal possessions. Like, you need to be on for 30 minutes straight, or for 30 minutes during a game. When the ball's in the other end and you have a chance to kind of take a deep breath, and that's essentially your break when you're that'd be essentially when you're on the bench. just take a deep breath, relax, think about what happened that last possession, what you're doing well that game, what you need to improve on that game, and kind of just keep it loose.
Perfect. Right on. I'm just going to see if there's any other questions. There's one coming in. Ryan Patton, any recommendations as to how to coach goalies to deal with breakaways? Oh, great question.
So the way that I like to play a breakaway is I take about a half step out. So I'm not right on my goal line, but I'm a half step out. That way, if the guy comes across the net, I still can get back to my post or where I need to be, but I'm also a bit out, so I'm cutting down a bit of an angle. And then my recommendation is just, find the ball in the stick as the guy's coming down. Wait for that ball to come out of the stick. You got to respect the fakes, obviously, but wait for that ball to come out of the stick. And once you see that ball, make the reaction. And as he's coming across the crease one way or the other, you need to move with him. But again, you just want to be patient, hold your ground, wait for that ball, and then react to make that save.
How much do you rely on? I mean, I've been around for a while. I hear goalies talk about everything from, oh, that guy's using a dark mesh, so it's my advantage. And like, how much game within the game is there really for you? Reading their eyes on a shot, those types of things. Or are you more just focused on the ball, leaving the stick, and then reacting?
Yeah, I'm just purely worried about the ball. And I'm always got my eye on the ball. I'm dialed in on it. If whether the guy has white, blue, red, black, whatever mesh, I'm just trying to find the ball in the player's stick. Obviously, if the guy has a white head, white mesh, white shooting strings, it's going to be a little bit harder to see it. But that being said, the ball's coming from the stick, so you just really need to dial in on the guy's stick, wait for that ball, and then react off of that.
All right. Any other questions from any of the attendees here? That was awesome. Great stuff, Mr. Ward. We were going to start at 6:30, but I think we're just going to take a quick 15-minute break, let people use the washroom and do whatever they're going to do. And then we are recording it, so it'll be a rebroadcast anyways. If somebody jumps on at 6:30, we can rebroadcast it. But if no other questions on here, I'm going to, jump off here and reconvene in 15 minutes. Any other questions? I'm just looking here. I thought I had another question. No, we're good. All right. Thanks so much, Dill. We'll see you in about 15 minutes to go through field lacrosse.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right.